What's going on, guys? Cover Killer Nation here with an EP review for you today. Yeah, it's an EP, not a full length or a single. Well, trust me, we'll probably have a single tomorrow, but yeah. Well, anyways, considering I had a subscriber during Subscriber Appreciation Day, which happened a couple of weeks ago during a blog TV, suggested I do the Enslaved discography, and actually was the #1 pick in that particular wave. There was about 6 of them. A couple of the videos have already been uploaded to this day. It seemed only fitting that I complete the Enslaved discography before doing the Enslaved discography. Relax, I'll let you know what I'm talking about. Of course, last year I did the 2010 album that the band was able to release, which ended up being my album of the year. So it's only fair, actually, that I complete this side of the discography from 2010 on with the Sleeping Gods EP that was just released in a download-only format a couple of weeks ago, before going back and tackling the rest. It's kind of like what I did with the Death discography, where I had already reviewed Symbolic and the Sound of Perseverance before doing the 5 videos that I had just produced for you guys in the past week. And of course, for those of you who didn't know that I did that, well, I did that, and they're there. There's a playlist for it, so definitely go and check them out. Now, with the Sleeping Gods EP, it was a 5-track affair, or it is a 5-track affair that clocks in at about 28.5 minutes long. And this is a band where I was very surprised that they kind of output this EP as quickly as they did, considering the last album from 2010 was only released last October. It seemed almost like a wink or a whisper ago in which this album was released and that I was reviewing it. So time really has seemed to fly a little bit, considering it's been 7 months. But even still, it seemed like kind of a quick turnaround. Either way, it seems that this was kind of an album that they decided to do for the fans, as a download only, where it's something a little bit special for them. Not necessarily where they had so many songs left over from the sessions where they just decided, bloop. But whatever the case may be, we have new Enslaved songs to listen to, so of course many of us are rejoicing. Now, I suggest the fact that they may not all be cuts from the sessions from Axomia, because the very first 2 tracks sound exactly like the sessions, period. It has a big resemblance to the album from last year. You could even just feel it whenever you listen to it. You can just hear the little subtle innuendos that you kind of got whenever you listened to the record whenever it was released last year. And it's they really thrust forward. They kind of have that same pattern. They really hit you the same way as all the cuts from the album did from 2010. So these very first 2 tracks feel as though perhaps they are some leftover sessions from the album itself, and they're very strong. In fact, these are really putting this EP off on a very strong foot forward. And then there's still 3 tracks left, and you're thinking, well, this holding pattern's pretty nice. But then they kind of take a little bit of a curveball on you, and they kind of disguise exactly their capabilities and really show you their ambient side with track number 3 entitled Synthesis. Now, of course, I'm not going to go over every track name, considering my pronunciation and speech is pretty repugnant, but you get the picture. Synthesis kind of broods over for about 6 minutes long. There's a very ambient track where there's a little bit of repetition, but there's also a great bit kind of going on here. It's a minimalistic piece of work that seems like there's a lot of layering going on, and the work of it is, well, pretty hypnotic. Hypnotic's the best word that I could use, because 6 minutes for something like this seems like a pretty heavy burden, but these are 6 minutes that pass by very quickly. You're actually kind of encouraged to continue to listen to this, even though you might feel that there's not too much else that the track is necessarily going to do. And the reason for that, I believe, is because it's just ambience and hypnosis and minimalism done extremely well, where you don't mind the wait between the ending of this track and the next track, track number 4. Track number 4 being more of an instrumental track, a little bit more akin to their traditional stylings that we saw on tracks 1 and 2. However, with the instrumental flavor to it, there's a little bit of almost like a jam feel to this particular track, and I kind of like it. It's a nice fitting setup to the last track, which is the self-titled track, Sleeping Gods, which is the 5th and final track on this particular EP. And this one definitely feels as though maybe it's something, somewhat of a little bit of a new direction for the band, either that or maybe even a recollection to the days of Isa. I don't know. It's a very rough song to kind of put a time stamp or a date stamp or an album stamp on, so to speak. However, the song itself definitely has some very strong qualities to it, and there is, once again, a little bit of a hypnosis to it as well. This is not a song where there's a ton going on musically. However, with the addition of the lyrics, there definitely feels like there's a lot more going on. This is all about experiments and layering, it would seem. Overall, this is a nice little EP. It's something that kind of gives us a little teaser to maybe what's to come, or maybe a little bit of teaser of the songs that didn't make the cut with the 2010 release. My #1 album of the year last year. Overall, I'd have to give this EP a solid 7.5 out of 10. This is something where I think that there's a little bit... some people may feel a little bit empty by this particular release whenever they listen to it, considering there's a little bit of experimentation within it. They may not find each and every one of these experiments to be for them, so to speak. However, as a whole, and with the experimentation also being taken into consideration, there's a nice little body of work here. It flows very nicely. It's 28 minutes that fly by very quickly. It holds your attention, and considering there are little undulations where they're kind of going off in a little subtle different direction, it definitely keeps you wondering what's coming next. Of course, unlike a full length where you have 10 or 11 tracks of wondering this, there's only 5, so there's only so many different varieties and places where they can go before the thing ends. But for what it's worth, and considering it's a free download, hey, no reason to complain. coverkillernation here saying that stay tuned for the Enslaved discography, which will be coming within the next couple of weeks, I'm sure, as I get it going. And also, for an EP, this is damn good. There's a single I'll probably review tomorrow that's probably going to be absolute shit, though.